all, I want to thank you for sitting down and answering questions. And honestly, I wish we could do this with all of our reps because we got some really great questions as far as the legislative priorities are concerned. And I would love to be able to ask all of our Denton County reps the same questions, or similar ones that we have gotten here. I also noticed that you brought a flyer with some of our legislative priority bills. And I think these are all ones that you voted for, I believe. And so some of the bills that we'll be talking about are on the flyer that I think was passed around, so that's great. All right, very first one has to do with our first priority, protecting our elections. Election integrity was the #1 priority of Republicans on the 2022 primary ballot, as well as the #1 priority for RPT state delegates in 2020 and 2022. Please address the election integrity concerns of the voters in Denton and Wise County.
Well, as I said, I want to try to make it as simple as possible. We want to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And we worked on that through a number of bills. I don't always co-author or author or be part of every bill that's headed that direction, because some of them are going to move forward and some of them are not. And once we start seeing what is picking up steam, then we make sure that bill has the things in it that we need, and that will be actually helping us in the elections. The one thing that we didn't get finished was that we didn't make it a felony to commit an act of illegally voting, and so that got done this second session, or the 88th session. Okay. So that got passed. Now, is there always room to tweak? Yes, we need feedback. And again, I think Steve said, I'm your representative, so I need feedback. I need you guys to get with me. And Jill, I'd love to have you come to my office. We've never done this, but come to my office and sit down and talk about those things.
Actually, we did. If you'll remember last session, I came and talked to you about gender modifications.
I asked you to come in at the Capitol. Was that at the Capitol?
Yeah. Yes.
But I'd like to have a formal meeting. I was in and out because I got to just see you in the hallway.
Yeah. All right, priority #2, next question. This has to do with securing the border and protecting Texans. You were co-author on 2 of 14 of our approved priority bills regarding border protection. Did you have objections to the other 12 bills that you were not co-author?
I would have to go over each one of those individually. Probably not. And I definitely want to see the border closed. And we've been, with Governor Abbott, we've been working very hard to get a lot of things done. When I first got elected, our border security budget, and I'm an appropriator and budget writer, was $800 million per 2 years. We just passed one that's $5.1 billion. And we shouldn't have to do that at the state. That should be the federal government. But as we know, the Joe Biden group has failed us miserably, and we've had to do it ourselves. We know that we have to have barriers, we have to have technology, and we have to have boots on the ground. And we're continuing to work on that. The buoy system is one of the latest things that's been put in. And we're getting a lot of slack from the other side, and I don't care, but the reality is it is not in vain. Where it started was where there was multiple drownings, and that buoy system has a net underneath it that goes all the way to the bottom, or at least far enough that they can't dive under. And so it makes it almost impossible for them to get over without help. Now, those cost $5 million per mile versus a border wall is $27 million per mile. But we had 8,049 bills come through us this last session. So I can't quote you every bill, but I can tell you, if you want to come sit down and talk about the other ones, I'll be glad to do it. There's none of the priorities that I'm aware of that I've voted against. Okay, in fact, they're important to me, just like they are to you.
Right. priority number 4, stop sexualizing Texas kids. There were 22 Republican Party of Texas approved bills that dealt with stopping the sexualization of children, and 5 that made it to the governor's desk. And you have got those 5, and you voted for all of those, of course, on this flyer.
And Julie, it's so hard to get them to the governor's desk,
yes.
because
Yes.
it's not like going to heaven where there's one way and one way only.
Right.
We are making sausage.
Right.
And you have to go this way and that way and up and over
Right.
and under. And it's amazing we got 5 and we'll get more.
So you co-authored one of those, but one of them, since Denton has had problems with drag queen performances in front of children, why did you not co-author SB 12?
To my knowledge, I thought I co-authored all of them, but I'll have to go back and look, okay?
So Representative Patterson did co-author this one, and so did Representative Gardner.
And sometimes what happens too is when they go over to be an SB, we have to go through a really long, lengthy process to become a co-author. And this is actually ended up being an SB bill,
Okay.
not a House bill, a
Yes.
Senate bill.
Okay. Why did you agree to allow Democrats to be in committee chair positions?
Well, I never agreed to allow Democrats to be in committee chairs. For the last 70 whatever years, that is always up to the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker, when we are elected, we obviously meet every other year. We meet on the second Tuesday of the odd year of January, and we go for 140 days straight. On the very first day that we're there, we are sworn in, and then we vote on our speaker, and then the speaker's team passes us out a little card on your top 3 priorities personally, and your priorities based on how long you've been here, that you want to be on the committee. So you turn those in, they go through all that, and they come up with which committees you're on. The last 3 sessions, I have been a vice chair, which I would have loved to have been a chair.
Right.
But I've been a vice chair the last 3 sessions.
Right.
To a committee that like this last one, County Affairs, there were 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. I would have preferred to be the chair.
Yes.
But you know what? As the vice chair with 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats, we were able to do what we need to do and control it.
Okay, and that actually does lead into the next part of that question, that you had hoped you would be named chair of the County Affairs Committee, and yet you were made vice chair under Victoria Naeve, a Democrat who fled to Washington at the end of the 87th session. How do you feel about being put under a Democrat, and do you think you would have done a better job, and do you agree with Speaker Phelan's decision for chair?
Well, you always want to say you think you'll do a better job, because I think I would do a better job. But, and the first thing that we have to do, first of all, I don't ever want to be like Washington, D.C., okay? They don't get anything done. Somebody tell me one thing they've done recently that helped you. We've got this and this thing. So we don't follow the way they do things, but the past, whether the House or the Senate, there's always been a rule to have some minority members as chairs. We actually throttled it way back after they left, like Victoria did. And again, what my statement was, anybody who got up and abandoned their constituents and their duties and left should be disciplined for that. Okay. And one of the things that we did do is we changed the rules. We changed the rules on the first day, where it is a $500 a day per fine for you breaking quorum. And that can't come from your campaign account, it can't come from your state budget. It's got to come out of person. And then if you don't pay it within a certain period of time, it gets worse. And it gets to the point where, we'd love to set it to where they lose everything, okay? Because the worst thing in the world is to be down there when they're gone and we don't have a quorum. Not only do we have to come in, we don't have to come in 5 days a week, and at the beginning of the session in January, we're usually there about 3 days a week, and then we can do our own office stuff and work on our bills, and we can usually go home and see our family on the weekend. By the end of May, we're there 7 days a week. But when you when they're gone, we have to check in every day. You get a little, I still kept my slips, different colored slip every day that said, when we got there and when they excused you that you were going to come back the next day. And we would have gone after those people if we legally could have, but once they are out of the state of Texas, we don't have any jurisdiction. So, yes, I'm 100%, I'm just as frustrated as anybody else to hear about that. And believe me, it did not gain them anything. When they got back, we still passed the conservative things that we were going to pass. And hopefully we're going to pass a lot more.
So of the 7 bills that you co-sponsored, none was for gun rights. What is your position on defending our Second Amendment rights?
Well, the fact that I have probably about 50 guns at home, and in my first session, or my first election cycle, I had been threatened by people because of false accusations, and had my life threatened, and my wife's life threatened, and I had to call the sheriff's department out and say, look, if this guy comes on my property, I feel threatened for my family, for my wife, for my staff, and I will shoot the guy. And they agreed. Okay, I'm 100% behind our Second Right amendments, and I know how important they are. And I passed and voted for every one of those. And I worked very closely with Matt Schaefer on the strongest bill that we've ever had go through, and the most conservative bill we've ever had go through the Texas House.
Yes, and that was the one legislative priority that we did get fulfilled in full in the 87th session.
And I'm disappointed that
yeah.
Matt's not coming back. I understand his family should be more important than coming down to Austin, but he was a great member. And I'll still get to work with him, because we have 1 or 2 more sessions coming up.
On enforcing parental rights and educational freedom, you served for several years on the school board, becoming a state representative. What is your position on educational freedom?
My position has evolved, I think, like a lot of people in this room. When I was in school, and the family unit was much stronger, public education was the place to be. And honestly, as one of 6 that grew up on a farm on a ranch in Kansas, my mom didn't have the ability to haul us anywhere. She didn't have the money to pay anything. We had to have a quality minimum education. But when I get calls, like I did recently, from parents saying, my 4th grade teacher asked my kid, what pronoun do you want to be called by? Then I know it's time that we have to have more parental empowerment. Our Governor Greg Abbott, asked me to introduce him at Calvary Academy at Denton Bible Church, and I said, I'd love to. And the reality is, what I want to see is a quality program that still it doesn't tier it from the haves and have-nots. I want to see the most social economic disadvantaged kid to be able to move to a private school if they need to. And I want to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to have parental empowerment, and utmost thing is to have quality education for every child in the state. If it wasn't for me, or for my mom and my education and my other brothers and sisters, I surely wouldn't be on this stage today. I wouldn't have the opportunity if I didn't come to Texas and I didn't get multiple degrees and be able to provide for my family. And so we need to prepare our kids for the next level. Not all of them are going to go to college. In fact, one of the bills that I passed this session was to have the technical college set up a new school in Denton County, which will allow people that don't want to go to college, but they want to get a career that they can make money, and they can, what I say is, what would my definition of whether we were successful or not is, do you have a job that you love to go to, and you love to go to work, and you also can provide for your family? If you've done that, then we were successful. I don't like the big tests that these kids have. In fact, our middle one was dyslexic, and she could not do it within a certain period of time. She had to have help.
Okay. So this ends the section on the legislative priority questions, and then there were just some other general questions, and you've already mentioned this a little bit in terms of the tax cut. But one of the important issues, in fact, this actually came in number 9 on our legislative priorities, so it didn't quite make the cut. I think probably had Roe v. Wade been repealed prior to state convention, then probably property tax would have been in the top 8. But one of the important issues of the 88th session and 2 special sessions was property tax reduction. You and others have stated that you passed the largest tax cut in history. Could you explain that, since it was only $12 billion, when in 2008 there was a $14.2 billion cut?
It was 18.3 billion. No matter how we slice it, it was 18.3. And there will be people that argue that it wasn't the biggest, but I 100% I'm not going to sit here and argue the little points. This was the biggest tax cut ever, and there were a lot of reasons for that. In 2 sessions ago, we revamped how you fund that public education. What I want to see is that ultimately we take the burden of the maintenance and operation from school tax off the backs of our property tax payers, and it be taken by the state. And we have to do that slowly, because we only have a 2-legged stool here in the state, and that's one reason we have the Texas Miracle. We do not have a state income tax. In fact, we passed a law in its 87th to prevent us from ever having a state income tax. Now the good news is we're growing at 1,300 people per day, and Diane is about 90 a day in Denton County? 92 a day in Denton County. And that's good and bad, both. But the reality is, if we can keep the Texas Miracle going, and if we can find this revenue that we finally have, because I've been on appropriations 3 sessions, and the other 2 sessions, the comptroller told us we're going to have a deficit budget. We are not like the federal government that will just print money. I don't want my kids having that debt, and we will not do that. So what we had to do was cut agencies. With the Texas Miracle going and these industries and everybody coming here, we have been able to put a lot more money away, and we've been able to give back $18.3 billion to the taxpayers. And what I want to see is that maintenance and operation that we compressed, and that was part of the argument between the House, the Senate, and the governor. Actually, on the first special session, the governor specifically said, I want tax relief to our citizens in the form of at least $16 billion through compression only. He wanted compression only. Dan Patrick, who is a great guy and a great legislator, he wanted homestead exemption only. And we got into a stalemate. And it took a while, but they all came together, and we got something better out of it than either one of the plans, because we have a 10.7 penny compression, and I want to see that keep going down to where we totally get rid of the maintenance and operation. And over the next 5 to 10 years, we can do that, as long as we have the Texas Miracle continue.
So follow-up question to this is, why did you vote to table an amendment offered by Representative Tinderholt, and this was during the regular session, that would have increased the tax cut to the 2008 levels of $20 billion, which would be adjusted for inflation?
Because we have spending caps, and it was unconstitutional because of the spending caps.
Okay. The legislature also passed the largest spending increase in Texas history, $62 billion more than 2 years ago, which is a 42% increase. How do Republicans justify such an increase?
Well, I don't think it's 62 billion, but we would have to pull the numbers out. I believe the last budget was 303 billion, and this one now is 321.7. That difference is about 18 billion, in spite of the fact that we also upped the ante for the border of 5.1 billion, upped the ante for education and mental health and many other things that are necessary. We still we did an amazing job. I don't know where you came up with that number, but I'd be glad for you to get with my chief of staff and we go over that, because we actually got a lot more done, and we decreased the general revenue that we spent doing that.
You authored House Resolution, I believe this was House Bill, it's misprint on my questions, 5105, relating to authorizing Denton County to impose a hotel occupancy tax for the purpose of funding a new county event center. Could you explain how this bill will affect county citizens, and is this something that a majority of your constituents requested?
I don't think I had anybody tell me they didn't want it. Okay, what is it? It's frequently referred to as a hot bill, hotel occupancy tax bill. And there's a couple ways that we can do this. First of all, like I said, when Lauren and I got here, there was 140,000 people in this county. Now there's over 1 million. I'd like, do we have to go to Dallas to go to everything? Do we need to go to a boat show in Dallas, to an RV show? Do we need to go to a graduation to one of these graduate, whether it be college or high school, somewhere else because we don't have a facility? Does the Denton Fairgrounds need to be able to grow, even though they're landlocked with 20-some acres right there in Denton? Do we want to have more recreation that we can have, whether it be ballparks or places, lakes to fish, etc.? The best way to do that is not to raise our property tax, but it's to get the money somewhere else. And the one way to do it is a hot bill. And what does a hotel occupancy tax bill do? It adds up to $2 per $100 for every stay at a hotel. So the majority of the money for this new exhibition center on 300 acres north of Denton, right off the interstate, where we'll have an indoor closed arena, air-conditioned arena for our rodeos. We'll be able to do all kinds of things inside. Will mostly be funded by people that have come to visit us here in Denton County. And with that, because of the requests I had in so many of them, and I also had that in Wise County, that we passed one in Wise County too. And it is going to help with the restoration and the continual maintenance of the courthouse, the historic courthouse. It's going to help with the parks there, and it's going to help with their fairgrounds also.
Okay. One of the committees that you served on was the Resolutions Committee. Can you please explain how this committee passed a resolution celebrating contributions of LGBTQ folks, which is contrary to our party platform?
Well, I'm only one vote, okay? And so I couldn't kill it by myself, okay? But yeah, you could try. And most of those got knocked down. I think there was one or two of those that happened, and then we were finally able to go not only to the chairman, who was a Democrat, but to the leadership and say, we're just going to kill them all if you keep bringing these and allowing them to happen. And so there were some changes made, and that was probably one of them that was early on in the legislative session of January, February.
Right. Yes, that is correct. Given that Mr. Hugh Brady, one of the House parliamentarians, was a Democrat that President Obama appointed as general counsel for the White House Office of Administration, would you protest his reappointment if you are reelected?
I'd have to do my research on that one. The one thing that frustrated me a lot, and he might be involved with, is the number of point of orders. And they were ridiculous. We need to rework how we do the point of orders. And of course, let's look back historically. Our forefathers wanted to make it very hard to pass bills and very easy to kill bills. And without a super majority of Democrats, this tax relief bill wouldn't have come to you guys for the vote in November. We had to have 100 votes on that, okay? So you can't just say, hey, talk to the hand, and you have to work. Now, going back to Brady, if we review all of the bills that he allowed to be point orders that were important priorities, then yes, I would.
Okay. Should Texas legislators have term limits? If so, what? If not, why not, given that the mayor of Denton and the president of the United States both have term limits?
I'm good with term limits, but I will tell you this. It's like being on the school board. It doesn't matter how long you're there, you learn more and more and more, okay? Would I have been effective as a freshman as I am in my fourth term? No, I couldn't have, because I didn't know and have the relationships. Part of it's relationship building. Personally, what I believe is there should be nobody in state or federal government that didn't have to go out and make a living on their own first. not be a career politician. Unfortunately, there are many of them, and they got there because they had a silver spoon in their mouth, and they got elected because of it. Everybody needs to worry about paying their property tax. Everybody needs to go to bed concerned about, will I be able to pay the electric bill, or will the electricity come on? And everybody that has dealt with other people like that and paying their property tax is much more qualified to make decisions than somebody who's never, ever worried about being able to survive.
All right, we're down to the last two questions. There are some who question the motives of the speaker donating large amounts of money to a representative's campaign, particularly in areas of reliably Republican voters. You took over $100,000 from Speaker Phelan. How does this affect your votes, and would you take that amount of money again?
I didn't take any money from Speaker Phelan. What I did is I got in-kind contributions from Speaker Phelan. Now, every speaker in the past that has had incumbents that were good incumbents that did things, and again, I know we didn't get all the priorities done, and we got to work on those. But folks, consider the fact that in the 87th and the 88th legislative session, not based on us, but based on other states, they will tell you those are the two most conservative sessions in Texas history and in most states' histories. So, I know I've heard this before. You took $100,000 from Dave Phelan. No, he went out and polled, and he went out and did advertisements for me. And when you put those mailers out there, folks, those mailers are $30,000 a piece, depending on who you do it. So I'm assuming, and I never was asked, I never was told what was going to be on it. He did that on his own accord to multiple representatives, just like every other House Speaker has done before that. But that's an in-kind contribution. And last but not least, I know you guys went off on that, on Dave, some of them. But what about the in-kind contributions I got from Greg Abbott? You didn't say anything about that. It wasn't as much, but I got some there. But still,
Do you want to speak to that?
I'll speak to that. He believes I'm a good representative. He supported me, and he did the same thing as Dave. He went out and he advertised, said, Lynn Stuckey's a great rep. I mean, we could pull up, somebody could probably be able to find the mailers that went out. And he did that for me. But I never took a dime from Dave Phelan, and I never took a dime from Greg Abbott. They did those things for me, and I have to report them as in-kind contributions.
Okay. Last question. Where do the opinions of your constituents come into play in how you decide to vote on particular bills? And can you give two examples? One, when you voted with constituents, and then another when you voted against their wishes.
Well, I'm trying to think of when I voted against their wishes. The only time I think I would have voted against their wishes would be if I knew it was biblically wrong. I still would have voted the biblical way. But I will tell you, like every session, when we get there, we were at an event earlier today. Richard Hayes said he got 800 emails in one day. That's not real unusual. You get emails, a lot of emails. Some of those are coming from our constituents. Some of them are coming from California or New York. Well, they're not real priorities for us. It's our constituents, and it's the Republican, biblical, conservative values that mean a lot to me. I want my kids and I want my grandkids to have the same opportunities we did, and to have a safe place that was founded like our country was with biblical values, to live and to raise their family and to enjoy. And I am blessed, Lori and I are blessed to be here. This is home for us, and you've heard this a million times from me, but I'm going to say it again. My kids all have that I'm a native Texan bumper sticker. We didn't have that one. We couldn't pick where we were born, but we have the one that said I wasn't born here, got here as fast as I could. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless Robson Ranch. God bless the great state of Texas. And please, folks, if you have any questions at any time, we're open to hear from you. The best way to do it, I'd love to have coffee with you. I had coffee with a group of guys a couple of days ago at the grill. I'd buy you a coffee or whatever. If you want to sit down and talk about a specific issue, please contact me. I will do everything I can to do that. Granted, we're probably going to be back in Austin at the end of September for one or two more sessions. So Steve, you got another prize?
Yes, sir.
Here you go.